Well, good morning, Jenny Lynn. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for asking. And yourself?
Doing great. Thank you. As we were chatting about a minute ago, we're in the throes now of school and the fall, and it's all happening, whether we want it to or not.
It is all happening at rapid speed.
Rapid speed, right? Amazing. Um, Welcome to the podcast, Jenny Lynn Walding from Milkmade. And I'm really excited to get into this with you today. It's a really important topic. You're from what the conversations that you and I have had previously and what I've stalked about you online, you're a builder. You're a builder. And I love that about you. You're a builder, you're a leader, you're trying to do things for others. I find so many women like you who have their own personal struggle, but then choose to not just focus on themselves and say, well, like, I just got to worry about me. You look at this and say, there's got to be a better opportunity here. There's got to be a better way. And I want to help other women as well. I'm not just kind of, doing this sort of like centric approach to me. But we're talking about breastfeeding today, right? We're talking about sort of the hidden pain points, the struggle. In some cases, I'm going to probably even say the trauma that's associated with breastfeeding. So before we do that, Jenny, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I am a marketing strategist.
Mhm.
I did not have human milk specifically on my bingo card 10 years ago. And I, through the trauma of breastfeeding, became a lactivist and not just a lactivist, but then furthering what I call a traumapreneur, where you take this trauma and you say, I like this was terrible. This was a horrible experience. And I don't want other people and families to go through it. And like you said, I think that is such a core situation around the FemTech community or women's health community is where we say, no, not on my, on my lifetime am I going to
Right.
allow this to keep continuing. And if we have children like myself, I'm thinking about the next generation as well and my
Sure.
lineage of are what am I leaving behind? What am I fixing so that they won't have to actually go through these types of experiences as well?
Yeah, that's really important. And again, that's the part that I really am impressed by and in awe of this women's health community and, and other communities in healthcare in general, where you say no to the status quo. You say, I could just worry about myself and my situation, but that's just not going to get the job done. Right. So let's paint the picture a little bit, Jenny Lynn. You were 11,000 miles from home. You had your first child. Uh, you were trying to work through birth and the breastfeeding that comes after that. You're far from your family. You're far from your friends. This is a very vulnerable time for you, but a very important time as well.
It it was 100%, and, keep in mind, I was also so my mom jokes that I couldn't have gotten any further away
Right,
from
right. Yeah.
it was like at some stage you are gonna get closer, to where my family
You're
was.
wrapping back around.
Yeah, exactly. Either way, in either direction, I coulda gotten closer. But so we were also going through the aspect of immigration, and so we were living in Perth, Australia for, on a at the time, we were on a work visa, and then moving forward, were getting permanent residency, and so we were really, thrust into this whole new system and structure, especially from an American lens, right? Like
Sure.
national health care, that's a very foreign concept. And being able to go into these childbirth education classes, having access to midwifery, midwives, and including home visits,
Right.
right? And so we're talking really like a pinnacle of being able to have access to
Mhm.
care, good quality care, and had no struggles truly with the pregnancy or the birthing piece. So check, I'm in the clear, in the
Great.
terms of we have so much focus on the health of the infant, health of the birther, and then breastfeeding. In my perspective, it just kind of got glossed over.
Mm,
And the reality here is breasts, they don't work like a bladder. It's not like this like automatic on and off switch or, they just start pouring out.
Right.
It really is this, you're now starting to hit these points where you don't have access to care. Are they working? Aren't they working?
Sure.
The baby working, is the baby not working? And where do you really have these cues of what's happening aside from a infant that is inconsolable?
Failing to thrive, inconsolable, right? And they always say, right, oh, you measure if things are going well by the amount of output from the baby, right? Is the baby urinating? Is the baby pooping? All that stuff. But there's got to be a better way, right, to monitor direct output, right?
There has to be a better way. Exactly. And that was my QVC moment. And
Yeah.
to your point, about really, I don't want to say the ambiguity that
Right.
shrouds checking dirty diapers, but for one, we were using cloth diapers.
Mhm.
So it didn't have that little like new cool
Yep.
blue line
Sure,
that
sure.
that
Yeah.
exists. And, and it's like, was that a teaspoon or is that a tablespoon of urine? And then breastfed babies, they actually don't necessarily have a BM. Sometimes, 3, 5, 7 days.
Sure.
So is this working?
Right, because they're absorbing more of the breast milk, right? Because it's
There's
more
less like filler and
filler and yeah, and things for them to actually excrete, right? So,
exactly.
yeah. And with your situation too, there was a tongue tying, situation that happened, right?
Correct. And
Yeah.
that honestly, so to kind of again like to paint this picture. So
Sure.
I'm, you know, outside on a stoop with my inconsolable baby.
Mm.
I mean, this is 7 weeks sleep deprivation
Oh,
because
yeah,
as one knows that, if you're a happy fed baby, you sleep,
right.
more so. Not through the night. I won't
But
want to say
more,
that,
but
but
more. Yeah.
you tend to be happier if you're not hungry. Who knew? And so I'm crying, she's crying, the kookaburras are out there just taunting me, which they have a very eerie sound if you're not familiar with kookaburras. Again, very foreign sounding. And so it just got to the point then the midwife was like, we gotta figure out what's happening.
What's
And
happening?
so had to check out the hospital grade scale,
Mhm.
had to start doing weighted feeds
Mm,
where again, you're stripping the baby down to the diaper, you're weighing them, you're feeding them from one side, you're weighing them, you're feeding them from another side, you're weighing them, and you're seeing where is this coming from, and then you're pumping. So and you need to have these like iterative data sets to see what is happening. Was it this one feed? Is it all feeds?
sure,
Is
you
it
need a trend, right? Yeah,
you need
yeah,
a trend.
yeah,
You need data.
yeah.
And so then through review and then being referred out, she had a posterior tongue tie,
Mm,
and it was such a relief. It
right.
honestly, I was
You're
like,
like, now I know what's happening. Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
it's not me."
Mhm.
And I think that, so much of this is we are this like we're not blaming the baby,
Sure.
right? But we're blaming the moms. And we're
Right.
like, "You didn't know?" Like, "Well, how?" And I was already using a nipple shield in
Okay.
this stage because of the excruciating, like, teeth gritting
Mm,
pain
that you're in.
of
Yeah, yeah.
of breastfeeding, which that's not
Yeah.
normal. Nobody told me. So so from that, literally, and as people have different opinions and views on the frenectomy, which is the snip or the
Right.
laser,
Sure,
and it was one of these, they don't medicate the babies typically for
sure,
the
because of the danger.
frenectomy,
Yep.
and so they do it, and then they bring the baby to the breast, and I was like,
Whoa.
"Oh my gosh, this feels so different."
Yeah.
This isn't, again, this, uh, pain being inflicted
Right,
on me.
right.
This stage, I now had already developed mastitis. I was already, having
Gorge.
to be on antibiotics. I mean,
Yeah,
it was just
sure,
oh, it's just a lot of things that can go wrong
sure.
in this small period of time where there really is limited touch points with providers.
And to your earlier point, Jenny Lynn, it's a time when you are going, you're trying your number one job during this time is to keep this little person alive, right? It's like
No
it's
pressure.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a dad as well, and you feel this tremendous sense of like pressure. I guess is the best way to say it, right? So not only you have this, that is your number one priority, the only thing you're focused on, and you have all of this surrounding you, right? So I really appreciate that you've told us this story because I think it's really, really important. But I guess the good that came out of this, if anything, right, is that this is a lived experience that you've turned into a mission now, right? So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with Milkmaid.
Absolutely. Well, I should wrap up this story and round it out,
Yeah, please do.
and also say that so I did that in Australia, and then I came to the US
Mhm.
and had another baby and went through the whole experience, and then again saw really how having access to care can change or not
Mm,
change the trajectories of that. And
okay.
so that really fully, developed my QVC moment of the importance of having some type of
It's full circle.
this full circle. Exactly. You know what? Support is supportive. I know it's crazy. And so to that, really ensuring that through Milkmaid, like you said, through this mission, is how can we start acquiring data, lactation data, so from breast into baby's mouth, and ensuring that we have these continuous data sets, not to create parental anxiety, but to actually curb it. That
Mm,
over this day, several days, week, that what ends up happening is that there isn't this cliff, this nosedive of where now your baby is no longer thriving, they're
right.
barely surviving, and, we're getting into those, trying to alleviate getting into those, like, scary things like
Sure.
hypoglycemia,
Mhm.
which unfortunately, a baby that has hypoglycemia can be sleepy or
Sure. Lethargic, right?
lethargic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
right.
so
So
it's like,
you think
"Oh, so
they're
my
dead and
baby's not
sleeping and
crying.
yeah, yep,
I have a good baby. My baby's
mhm,
not crying."
mhm.
Or is your baby malnourished?
Right, is your
And
baby's blood sugar crashing? Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And that's ensuring that parents and babies
Mm,
clearly are supported through this stage and being able to have not just the data, because I know you and we really vibe on this, that data
yeah,
is only as good as what you do with it.
of course.
So ensuring that that is layered through those with the telehealth consultants, lactation consultants, your care provider,
Mhm,
to make sure that we have this full support and also full visibility on lactation.
sure. So, it's a it's so challenging, right, how we assess the success, I guess, right? And you say, like, the hypoglycemia, ins and outs, there's this blind spot. It's really hard to quantify, you know? You overreact, you underreact with the data. So this is kind of the genesis, right, Jenny Lynn? This is the cornerstone of what Milkmaid is trying to do. Do I have that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing was, back in the day, it's like, well, if you want to know how much you're producing, just go pump.
Right.
You can pump and you'll see how much the baby's getting.
Sure.
But as research is coming out, we know that we don't have the same physiological response to a pump versus our actual
Oh,
infant.
interesting. Interesting.
Like
Yeah,
that's
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah.
and the same goes for like, well, what's a more efficient feeder? Is
Mm,
it babies
mhm.
or is it pumps? Well,
Right.
pumps again are, a vacuum effectively. They don't have the same type of motion
Motion
and
and yeah, makes
extraction.
sense. It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And as you integrate a pump, and again, I'm in, I love to hate pumps, hate to love them, but it's
Probably a
when
necessary evil, right?
they are a necessary evil.
Mhm.
But especially in the beginning period of time, adding that to the diet of the breastfeeding baby dyad,
Mm,
what can end up happening is you can then, unnecessarily increase engorgement
sure.
because now you've cued your body like, "Hey, I have more than one kid," or
Yeah,
"I
let's
have
get
this."
going. Yeah.
Crazy vacuum kid. And so then you just have this influx of milk, and
Sure.
now what do you do with it?
Right. And you're missing out on some of the bonding too during that.
And I will just speak from a personal experience. Seeing what you pump, there there is a intrinsic metric to
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
And, and it is I remember coming home with my bottles, my
Mhm.
pumped bottles from work, and I would say it was a good day or it was a bad day. And all the
Yeah.
value to that day was what was in those
Within
bottles.
within those bottles. Yeah. I guess that's just something that is probably inherent within us as human beings, right? To you say is like an intrinsic metric of that. Yeah, that's so interesting. And to think about how you were kind of anchoring your day around the amount of breast milk that you pumped. Wow, that's complicated. Yeah.
It is complicated,
Yeah.
and I talk about the our worth, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about breast milk, human milk as it's liquid gold, it's precious,
Yes.
it's it's not something that you can just go and get off the shelf. You have to mine for it. You have to
Right.
go, really work for this. And so there is this weight of worth associated to these mills,
Mhm.
mills, ounces, and for those that have undersupply,
Yeah.
and they talk about every little drop counts, like, to help support those that are only making the few drops.
Mhm.
But then it's also every little drop counts, and you're
Right.
just,
Yeah, you
weighing.
waste nothing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a marketing strategist, you're a new mom, you have your QVC moment, you've gone through this journey. Let's just call it a journey. That's probably being a little bit inconsiderate, but we'll call it this journey that you've gone through, Jenny Lynn. You said you had this QVC moment. So tell us what, in your own words, what are we doing here?
So, taking and this is just, off the shelf,
Mhm.
a nipple shield.
Nipple field, yep.
So,
Mhm.
for those that don't know, this is a sheath or a barrier that you would put between yourself, your breast, and the baby. They can latch on
Mhm.
here, and they can still withdraw milk, extract milk, and this is to help to basically buffer the pain, right?
Right.
Or you can also use it for inverted nipples. If the baby is tongue-tied or have potentially, like, latch issues,
Sure.
this helps with that. So, I was already using this
Right.
and couldn't breastfeed without it. And so, again, the QVC was like, "Why isn't this tech? What is
Yeah, why
happening
I
here?"
mean, that's probably been on the market f I don't even wanna hazard a guess, Jenny Lynn, like, how long has a nipple shield been on the market for?
I'm so glad you asked because I
Okay,
also did not know this,
okay.
but it's been around for at least 400 years.
It
Okay, which is so to me,
it's
what I find
mind-blowing, yeah.
shocking is a lot of people don't know about them.
Yeah,
Like, really? So not only do they not know about them, but then also there's some people that are opposed to them,
sure.
and they are gatekeepers to it, and so they don't talk about it,
Interesting.
which
Bringing
is
their own bias into it, yeah, yeah,
correct,
yeah.
correct, and so I was already, with the weighted feeds,
Mhm,
and I just have to say, again, writing in pen and paper,
mhm.
these and then you're also having to convert into grams and all of this stuff,
You're like
and
back in school.
yeah, you're trying to do math as you're holding, a baby that's screaming or you're laying
On
him
no
on the
sleep, yeah.
everything, and then what happened, honestly, when I was doing the weighted feeds was not to throw him under the bus, but my husband I had to leave.
Sure.
And so it was like, "Okay, you need to weigh her while I'm gone. You need to do this." Well, he didn't take her down to her diaper.
Oh, he waited with her clothes on.
And I was like, "You threw out my whole data set," like my whole I don't know now, what was she wearing? Did she have shoes on? It's like that thing. And
You
so
introduced all these confounding factors.
correct. And so that is where I was like, again, there has to be a better way. We
Right.
need tech in the nipple shield
Mm,
so that again, you're not just, you're not just taking this data and having this empirical data calculated.
Mhm.
What is it telling me?
Right.
What am I doing with this? And how would that actually impact the amount of feeds that I'm offering?
Mhm.
And here's the other thing is, it's like with the exclusive breastfeeding community, it's always like wide open, like bring the baby to your breast, ensuring that you're feeding on cue, not on these like timed uh
Right.
schedules, right?
Intervals. Yeah. Yeah.
But babies don't just feed because you bring them to your breast.
Right.
There's
They eat
non-nutritive
when they're
and
hungry.
nutritive,
Yeah.
mouth movement. And so if they're actually not having these deep intake swallows where they're truly withdrawing, then it's not a non-functioning, a non-nutritive
Right. So non-nutritive
event.
latch. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm. And technically, I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about, you had described it to me as sort of an aura ring, right? Which
Yes.
I love that analogy. But maybe also you could give us a little bit, well, maybe you could give us a little bit of a technical and a non-technical description, Jenny Lynn, of, what signals, how the measurements are captured, what do you do with it? How do you see it? How does that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm gonna have to upgrade which we love the Oura Ring. The Oura Ring is crazy,
Yeah.
in terms of like the types of text and data that you're getting. But I was having this conversation with somebody here recently where I was like, I don't want to be reminded that I had a bad sleep last night.
Yeah.
I want to be notified in the next month with my hormonal cycle that I have notoriously had bad sleeps at this time. So maybe I need to drink chamomile tea or read a book or,
Yeah.
something along those
Stay off
lines.
my device or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
So for the time being, we will stick with the Aura Ring of Lactation.
Okay.
And
Fair.
through through a flow meter, we are able to access the flow from breast into baby's mouth.
Okay.
So right there, that is then being through an app, being layered into the app, and we can start seeing this data flowing through of how much the baby is intaking. But since breastfeeding it takes two to tango, it takes two to breastfeed. If I let's just say right, as a babies that have had tongue tied. So I now have two babies that have tongue tied.
Mm.
Is that just because I'm making milk, if they can't extract it,
Right.
then I'm not getting any type of data.
Right.
So through enhancing the Smart Nipple Shield with a latch sensor to ensure that they have an optimal latch and ensuring that they have non-restricted tongue
Mhm.
mobility to
Mhm.
help the both sides of you making the milk and them
Make movement.
extracting the milk.
I get it. I get it. Yep, absolutely. And this nanotechnology, Jenny Lynn, I mean, you're a marketing strategist, right?
Yeah.
So, and not to sell you short, but I don't think that you have a degree in nanotechnology.
I
So
don't.
so how did that come about, I guess? Who did you kind of work with and
Yeah, so you know, maybe this is my gift is, I identify, I know what I know, I know what I identify what I don't know.
right,
And to that, I knew that this was beyond my scope of capabilities. Like I'm not out in the garage, you
right,
know,
tinkering, soldering.
building circuit boards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just again through communication, through LinkedIn,
Yeah.
I definitely, have some grievances with LinkedIn, but I will say that being able to contact people, you know, across the world and look at specialties and say, this is what I'm working on. Is this something that you can freelance or can you contract out?
Help me out, yeah.
And, what this really highlights as well, above all the things, of all the technical skills that you need a good lawyer.
Mm,
And
good advice.
lawyers is that I mean, whether they're good or bad, they're expensive, right?
Sure.
That's
Yeah,
one of the
full
things.
stop.
And so through the FemTech women's health community, listening and attending a lot of webinars where you have panelists, those are great people to reach out to. people that's actually how I found my patent attorney.
Mm.
A lot of them will just, take a first introductory consult call and say, "Do you have something here or do you not have something here?"
Right, right,
And I think what's great advice is don't talk about it
right,
in any capacity
right,
until you have some type of provisional patent covered and you have a good lawyer, and also then that also further drives what you need to, hit on with other types of for your non-provisional, you have to have that technology pretty much ironed out,
right.
and this is where you're freelancing with the specialists.
And it seems again, you as a marketer, as someone who clearly knows how to network, knows how to make those connections, you clearly weren't afraid to do that either, Jenny Lynn, right? I mean, I actually think this is kind of your superpower, but um a lot of the, folks that kind of come into this conversation, they're nervous, they don't think that they can reach out, they don't think that they can have these networking conversations especially when they need specialized expertise like you did. So, is your advice there to just go for it?
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and even with pitching,
Yeah.
okay, like, I'm in that circuit and I'm doing those things, and I have to be honest with you, you know, it it's definitely, like, sweat inducing
Sure.
and it's scary and all those things, and so my eldest daughter was like, "Have you ever had fruit thrown at you?" And I was like, "What? Like, what are you?" She's like tomatoes. Have they ever chucked them at you?" And I was like, "So, no, thankfully." But
Luckily.
also I was like, public speaking and, collaborating, networking, people know it's pretty scary, and
Right.
so if you are able to do it, people tend to be relatively,
Receptive.
friendly about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the advice I always give folks that I work with as well is like, look, they wanna help you. They wanna be friendly. You just and they do realize how big and scary this is. So just take that leap of faith, right, if you will. Yeah, yeah. That's really, really cute about your daughter asking if people throw tomatoes at you. That's hilarious.
I mean,
Uh,
and I'm not a court jester.
yeah.
Maybe that's the difference.
Well, and also look, I mean, you're pitching something that half the people probably in the room, because let's assume half of them are men, half of them are women. Half the people in the room maybe can't even relate. Maybe they can relate to this through their spouse because maybe their spouse had challenges, but they themselves can't relate to this, right, at all. You've got to be able to kind of paint that story and have people understand what it is that you're really getting at here, right?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up because,
Yeah,
yes, it is divided, but honestly, it would be more especially when it comes to pitching to investors,
sure.
VCs, it tends to lean more on the male side,
Right.
and, you know, I really do drive this message as to, yes, breastfeeding falls typically on the woman, right?
Sure.
The breastfeeder, chest feeder, this is the parts. However, as we are talking, I mean, think about longevity.
Right.
Longevity is so sexy in terms of the funding and investments in this space, and everybody's talking about it. Come 35, 40, you know about various supplements that's going to help
You potentially
lengthen
live longer.
your
Yep.
telomere and all these fun things. But if we really want to work as a proactive globe, breastfeeding has a myriad of amazing benefits,
Totally.
not just for the baby,
Right.
but also for the lactator as
Right.
well. And as a partner or as just a human, if our goal is to have a healthier nation and world,
Society, world.
this is at the foundation.
Right. Well, even think about the carbon footprint aspect of this too, right, Jenny Lynn, and how much that reduces with plastic and all these other types of things that are associated with, and again, not to shame on bottle feeding, but these things that are associated with bottle feeding, right?
Correct. And you can still pump milk and
Right.
provide human milk through a bottle.
Bottle. Sure. Yeah.
It's really comes back to you have to be able to save and
Mm,
sustain this relationship, and it starts at day dot.
right.
So, there are studies that talk about like kangaroo care where you put the baby on the chest, and it's like
Right.
how that can help with even things like postpartum
Definitely.
hemorrhaging,
Yep.
and how breastfeeding can help with postpartum hemorrhaging, and all of these just again really natural uh
Yeah.
relationships that occur in terms of improvement. And unfortunately, we've gotten away from
Sure.
from
Sure.
a lot
Certainly.
of these
Absolutely.
core knowledge.
Yeah. In terms of how things have been going, Jenny Lynn, let's talk a little bit about the results, the testing, people are using it. What kind of feedback are you getting now? And then I guess, what are you doing with that feedback?
So in terms of for how like slow Q1 through Q3 is,
Yeah.
I feel like Q4 is really making up for it.
Yeah.
And so we are very much like bootstrapping, boots on the ground, all the
Yeah.
boots metaphors. We are pitching. So last week we pitched and we actually won People's Choice Award. So
Oh,
that was very
congratulations.
exciting.
That's
And
super.
thank you, to make this very humble, my kids got to be in the audience.
Oh,
So
fun.
that my youngest is like, Mama, I want to work for Milkmaid. I'm like, I'm working on it,
I'm
girl. Like,
working on it.
and so we
We're
don't
setting up
call
a
that
legacy here.
that, and we don't call that nepotism. We call it nepotism. So we're just, making sure that she just might be able to apply for a job that exists when she's, much older.
Right.
And then we also, I can't publicly announce this just yet,
Sure.
but we got invited to do an incubator. So we applied and pitched and got in. And so that is
Outstanding.
going to be a solid 3-month commitment. And
Mm.
unfortunately, it's not super close. It's not just down the road. It's,
Uh,
definitely have some travels, overnights
some
planned.
residency requirements for it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's I won't have to like, it's just it's gonna be so back to back that it doesn't make sense to drive another, few
Yeah.
hours back home type thing, but
Gotcha.
it's definitely, and then we also just got invited to pitch in, right outside of Washington, DC
Oh, cool.
in November. So
Nice.
there's lots of things going on from that front, and then from the side of why I'm bringing up the incubator is there is a close relationship with the hospital that
Oh,
is in the area,
wonderful.
and so really being able to have that key stakeholder, the, really clinical,
Mhm.
not just
Validation. Yeah.
validation, adoption,
Yep.
we really want to ensure that we're hitting that full ecosystem of
Perfect.
lactation.
Perfect. Perfect. One thing I don't want to be remiss on asking you about before we run out of time together today, Jenny Lynn, you are a certified lactation counselor. You are a CLC. I know another thing that's really important to you when you were talking about the affiliation with the hospital and the clinical validation and all those things. I know something that's really important for you too is access
Absolutely.
and equity associated with lactation, breastfeeding, community, if you will. I know you're designing and thinking about parents, support networks, non-English speakers, people with low connectivity, data equity. Let's just chat about that for a few minutes about how important that aspect of this is to you and your mission.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you touched on this because health should not be assigned to a demographic,
Mhm,
to a zip code, to a state, right?
mhm,
Like, health should be accessible by all, and it should be affordable by
right.
all. And we look at breastfeeding and health as one and the same.
Mhm,
That's really because again, this is where that core nutrition, being able to have those level of antibodies right there at day dot. And if people are priced out of access to a lactation consultant,
mhm,
right? Or even logistically unable to go into their clinics, right, for a weighted feed,
sure,
or go to the hospital, get the hospital grade scale, come home, set it up, calibrate it, then they have to return it in 2 days. Well,
sure.
what if your hospital is
Yeah,
hours away.
50 miles away, 60, 800 miles away. Yeah, 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 absolutely. Yep, yep.
And the thing that I also wanna highlight is when people which formerly known as a maternal desert, but now like a maternal void, is this is these voids aren't just happening in rural communities. They're happening in even metropolises where doctors are leaving because
Mhm.
they're looking for whether it's the reimbursement piece or whether they're looking for potentially areas or states that have more
Sure.
um, liberties. And that to me is again another driver of why we need to have support
Mhm,
where we are meeting parents where they are, which is at home
mhm.
and in very different financial brackets.
Sure. Absolutely, absolutely. I was listening to a podcast yesterday called Let's Be Heard, and they were talking specifically about rural healthcare and access to rural healthcare, and I think for some of us, I know I grew up in the greater Boston area, we didn't it was never the hospital was literally 5 minutes from my house, right? And you get a very different perspective when you grow up in an area where you really are rural, and healthcare, to your point, is could be an hour away, an hour and a half away. And as a result, also you're dealing with different sociodemographic challenges as well, right? So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it's really great that you are thinking about all of this community, all of the support, really core to your mission at Milkmead. So, and maybe really before we wrap and let you go, Jenny Lynn, let's just talk a little bit about you've got some really exciting stuff. You just mentioned the incubators and other things, but in terms of your go to market, this sort of like, do you envision this as both a direct to consumer market as well as an enterprise, like B2B market? How are the, how are you kind of envisioning those unraveling over the next several months as you go through your product launch?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I see both, right?
Mhm.
So, two channels that have value because I never wanted there to be this requirement for a prescriber
Mhm.
to stand in the way between you and having lactational insights.
Sure.
Or, in terms of like, say it takes you 2+ weeks to get into a pediatrician office or, contact with your OBGYN or something along those lines. By that stage, your milk might have already diminished, your supply. And so we want to ensure that we can put patients in the driver's seat, that they can have access direct to consumer way through e-com, but we cannot take out obviously clinicians and
Sure.
the value and the touch points that they have with patients.
Mhm.
So I see this also as having a consumer model and then also having a clinician model to where
Sure.
you have people that can and make it into their office and be able to have access to a lactation consultant like an IBCLC or even a CLC
Mhm.
and ensure that you are being able to meet your breastfeeding goals
Mm.
and through improving lactational longevity, we're raising those health rates and
Yeah.
improvements.
Amazing, amazing. So important, right? So very important. How do we find you? How do we follow along your story?
Thank you for asking.
Mhm.
So I am on milkmade.me. So that is our URL.
Yeah,
I have Instagram, LinkedIn, like all the things.
all the
So
things. Okay, we'll
come
queue them all
over.
up. We'll
Yeah,
queue them all up in our episode description, but I do like to hear folks tell me in their own words. But milkmaid.me, I think, is where we wanna get the party started, right? For sure.
that's right.
Absolutely.
Head
Jenny,
there and then you can filter to all the other things.
awesome. Jenny Lynn Walding, thank you for coming on, telling us this story. Oh, thanks to our friend for connecting us, by the way. It just shows again the power of networking, the power of connectivity. You and I met through a mutual friend, and now we're friends, and we are able to do this today. So thanks, and we'll be watching you. And I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. Greatly appreciate it. And like you said, thank you to the power of networking and to human milk because that was the contact through. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, thanks.